started a fryer fire. Night after I won Food and Wine's Best New Chef, nearly burned the place down.
For real?
For real. And this weird thing happens, too. You have this minute where you're watching the fire and you're thinking, if I don't do anything, this place will burn down and all my anxiety will go away with it.
Here's an obvious statement. The Bear is a really good show. Or should I say, it's still a really good show in its second season. I just blew through season 2 in about 3 days, and I decided that yeah, I do want to talk about it for a few minutes. I mostly want to talk about whether the show has changed in any significant way from one season to the next. The Bear's first season seemed to come out of nowhere. It was a new show from the FX network starring a cast of mostly unknowns with very limited marketing. Now, why does that sound familiar? Even though it's happened a few times, this is not always a winning formula, especially now when it seems like there's a new show coming out on streaming every few weeks. For every breakout success that FX has had, there always seems to be at least 2 other shows that come and go without much of a splash. The Bear, for whatever reason, was and is different. The network called it their most watched comedy ever, and its second season was ordered just 3 weeks after the first premiered. Which is pretty amazing for an 8-episode show that almost entirely takes place in one loud, overly crowded restaurant. Seriously, by the time you get to the show's 4th episode, which takes place at a family barbecue, it feels almost unnatural to see this cast somewhere other than the beef. But just like the characters, horizons widen for the show in its second season. So, how does universal acclaim, and what I have to assume is a bigger budget, affect The Bear in its second season? Well, for starters, the show visits more places. Different restaurants, different kitchens, even a different city for one episode. But of course, it always circles back to Chicago. And this might be a weird thing to point out, but the first change I noticed in the second season was that the show's establishing shots of the Windy City seem to have jumped up a level. There's some crazy drone shots that zip you up and around buildings at wild angles. And sometimes these moments in between dialogue and action take on this almost dreamlike quality. A show having nice establishing shots isn't the most flashy detail, but sometimes they are honestly pretty stunning. A sense of place is important to this show and its characters. Chicago inspires these characters. Its food, its history, and yes, even its buildings. This is pretty explicitly shown in episode 3 when Sydney is trying to come up with a new pasta dish. Skyscraper windows morph into different pasta shapes. Winter snow turns into cheese. It's romantic.
Sex is about love between a man and a woman, not a man and a sandwich.
So yeah, more locations. More creative filmmaking, but maybe my favorite addition is more music. Accompanying these 10 new episodes is a laundry list of songs that would make James Gunn blush. That episode we were just talking about, it ends like this.
I looked in the mirror, what did I see?
With just the perfect track choice to cap off an episode. The Taylor Swift moment is incredible too, in its own way, but I prefer a Mavis Staples needle drop. Plus, you know, she's from Chicago. Speaking of music, there's a concept people use to criticize albums that I think can also apply to seasons of television. It's called the sophomore slump. The slump is a somewhat common trend where a band or artist follows up their very successful and creatively engaging first album with a second that is less well received or less popular. The theory goes that an artist will put all of their best ideas and life experiences into album number 1. But then, when it comes time to make a follow-up, they don't have as many creative ideas or their sound is considered less novel. I think certain TV shows and showrunners go through a very similar process. Sometimes a show is really successful out of the gate, and that can make it difficult for the team behind the show to want to change up their formula. But this line of thinking can lead to second seasons that seem to tread water or rehash plot lines. The Bear, thankfully, is not one of those shows. It has new ground to cover in season 2, and it's not interested in resetting its characters back to zero. These characters have changed from their experience in season 1, and they have new journeys to go on this time around. And that's made especially clear from the start in season 2's first episode, Beef. The character Richie is almost an antagonist in the first season. He's sort of the leader of the faction of the restaurant that wants things to stay the same. He's not the leader because of any leadership skills, mind you, but because he shouts the loudest. And while it probably takes Richie the longest out of anyone to come around to Carmy and Sid's way of doing things, he does eventually come around. He actually opens up with both characters. He even learns to say corner.
You didn't say corner.
Rather proudly. Season 2 makes it immediately clear that Richie's character is not reset to 0 for the new season. He's been changed by the people around him, and he'll continue to change further throughout the show. His storyline in Season 2 is probably my favorite, but there's plenty of competition. The Bear really digs into its characters this season, and it's a great setup for that, with there being a lot of downtime during the restaurant's renovation process. Sydney, Marcus, Tina, and even minor characters like Ibrahim and Uncle Lee get nice moments to shine throughout the season. And that's before we even mention all of the guest stars that crop up every episode. Season 2 is, for most of its characters, a chance to grow. The stakes become less about whether the restaurant will fail every other day, and more about whether the people working in it can become better versions of themselves. It's a warmer message than Season 1, and I think the filmmaking reflects that well. Every second counts is a phrase that crops up constantly throughout a season that takes things much slower. Scenes are often longer and quieter. Even the cooking feels different. It's less frantic, more meditative. And it's all very tactile, textured. You can almost feel the wooden surfaces under the characters' fingers as they shape wood and plaster and dough and pasta into their dreams. The second season is not without its heavier moments, but the darkest of those are seemingly resigned to the past. Season 2 might leave Carmy in a bad place for now, but it also chooses, in its final shot, to end on Sydney, still hesitant, but also triumphant. The light can still shine through.